What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? Alright, so 4 things this week, but I think 4 notable things. On the K-pop front, we got 2 big releases. Taeyong's solo debut, Shalala, NCT member, first NCT member to go solo, pretty notable, as well as the 3rd album from Stray Kids, 5 Star. This is going to go number 1 in the country this week. They're a massive group. We're going to get into that. Also, on HBO, the new Sunday night 9 o'clock show, The Idol, with The Weeknd, Lily-Rose Depp, Sam Levinson, controversial, polarizing, a lot to get into with that one. And of course, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is now out to rapturous reviews and box office acclaim. Gotta dig into that. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See the links below. Make sure you get the pod somehow, some way. Just do it. See the links below for the best of 2023 Nostalgia Spotify playlist for my favorite songs of the year, updated weekly. Get that too. And let's get into it. What's up, my Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Taeyong's solo debut album, Shalala. Taeyong, the leader, face, founding member of NCT, one of the best-selling K-pop groups of all time. People know them. You know NCT. To me, NCT at times has been a bit hard to get into just because there's so many members, there's so many subunits, there's so much music. There's a lot going on with NCT. But I think Taeyong's contributions to the NCT project over at SM Entertainment has been one of the few things I've been able to really latch onto about the NCT, mission here. Taeyong, one of the members of Super M, the SM supergroup, the face of NCT 127, to me the most successful, the most accessible NCT subunit. Talked about their album Two Baddies last year. And now he's the first, NCT member to go solo with a full-length album. A bunch of them have released solo songs to this point, but this is the first full-length project, really an EP mini album. And kind of surprising it took this long to get to this point. To be honest, there's a lot of members. They've been so successful. They've been releasing so much music. Surely we could have gotten this a little bit sooner. Nonetheless, here we are. Taeyong's first mini album, Shalala. 7 songs, 23 minutes. I think this is okay. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It's fine. I'm happy it exists. I'd like to hear more. I think a lot of times when you get a mini album, as it's branded as, you get an EP, doesn't always have enough time to make a true impression, I think a full length may have served Taeyong a little better. When I think about NCT 127, the ability to kind of jump genres, jump sounds, jump production styles stood out to me, and why I was a fan of a lot of the NCT 127 music. And you just don't have as much time to communicate that on a short project. I think Taeyong, to his credit, sounds fine on this. I think his performance is more or less good, but I don't know if any of these songs are like dynamite bangers to me. The title track, which has the music video out now, Shalala, track 1. It's an NCT 127 vibe for sure, but I found it a bit cringy, specifically the chorus. Didn't love it ultimately. Track 2, Guando, I thought was a lot better. The 3rd song, Move, Mood, Mode, bit of a tongue twister there. I think the hook is really weak and underwritten, but I also love the key changes on that song. I think the production really stands out there. I was a bit disappointed though in the feature. You have Wendy, of course, one of the stars, lead vocalist from Red Velvet. People know Wendy. Her high notes, her singing voice needs no introduction. One of the best vocalists in the K-pop industry. People know this. But she's barely on the song. It's a bit of a duet for a brief moment at the end. Would have liked a lot more. I think there's definitely more meat on the bone, more potential with that. Because Taeyong is a pretty versatile K-pop artist. He can do the rapping, he can do the singing. I think he sounds good doing both. I think the issue with a lot of these tracks is that I just find the writing a bit crass. That's kind of my issue with Shalala. I don't know. It's I like when he raps, but I just don't know if he's really going hard enough on these, and that's just kind of the way these songs are made. I think Ruby It's a really solid track. That's a good song. And the track before that, Virtual Insanity, that would be my favorite on this, just because I think the rap vocals from Taeyong are actually quite strong on that. Definitely the best rapping. 404 File Not Found, excellent name, love it. I think the best part about that's honestly the guitar outro kind of comes out of nowhere, but sounds really good. And then the last song, Back to the Past, probably the best production overall. I love the keys. I love the drums. Overall, the rhythm on the whole song sounds really good. So there's stuff to enjoy about Shalala from Taeyong, but I just don't think this is close to his best work. Um, I would rather listen to the best NCT 127 songs and listen to this stuff. I don't know if he really like puts his own identity out there in a convincing enough way. Perhaps with a full length album, it would have been easier to latch onto with more time, more tracks to really delve into. So, decent first impression as a soloist. I'd like to hear more. I'm sure I'll hear more from Taeyong on the NCT front in short order. That's just how NCT rolls. But let me know, how are you feeling about the solo debut? Did you like it more than me? For more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Well My Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Stray Kids' third album, 5 Star. Man, Stray Kids delivered an absolute banger of an album. I really love this record. Can't wait to talk about it. I think there's so much to get into with Stray Kids, and I just want to say, like, off the bat, they're an incredibly exciting group that I think people need to be paying attention to, need to be listening to, and many people are, because this is the third Stray Kids album that will go number 1 in the United States, on track to sell over 200,000 units first week. They are a massive group, and clearly they are the leaders of the male K-pop space in terms of filling that BTS, hiatus, sucking up that oxygen that's been vacated by this BTS hiatus. Stray Kids are incredibly hot, making great music, and have all the momentum in the world. I think they are just a standout group for many reasons, really exciting. And I think 5 Star is my favorite project they've released. They made, I think, a huge step forward in 2022 with those 2 EPs that were massive successes. Was it An Accident and Ordinary? But 5 Star to me is like a step forward sonically, artistically, and because I think most importantly, this is a full length album. It's not an EP. It's not a mini album. This is a full length K-pop release. This is like real, like, creative vision is actually here. I talked about a lot of K-pop this year. A lot of K-pop I've enjoyed, but almost always I'm talking about EPs. I'm talking about mini albums. I'm talking about sub 30-minute projects, little tasters. That's kind of like the mode of operation in K-pop, where you release EPs quite frequently, albums infrequently. And Stray Kids is doing that as well. But I think when you get an album that is as confident and good as 5 Star is from Stray Kids, it just stands out so much more because it is like unique in that regard. So I think there's so much to like about 5 Star. I like so many of these songs, and I think they deserve a lot of credit because they, which has been the case for a while, they write their own music, they produce their own music. It's really, and they're signed to JYP Entertainment. They're a mainstream K-pop group, but they do their own thing, and it's really cool. Bang Chan, Changbin, and Han, aka 3 Raka, those 3 guys in Stray Kids are like the creative force behind all this music, and I think it really shows. And what also makes them so exciting is the level of genre mash and switch ups in sound and styles and vocal performance and vocal stylings is so consistent in its volume, its quantity. Stray Kids is always doing something new. Sometimes that's like verse to chorus to next verse. It's like 3 different types of songs. It's always a puzzle, I think, unpacking the types of songs they make. It's just really cool. And I think at the worst, Stray Kids is never boring. Maybe sometimes it's overstuffed and too much, but it's never dull, which I think is just really commendable music, and the fact that they can be, I think, this experimental and wide-ranging and risk-taking, and also be commercial behemoths at the same time. It's just really exciting that they're attracting that fan base. without compromising themselves at all. They're finding all this success in the United States as well without making tons of English tracks. They're not compromising the type of music they make too, and you love to see that. But yeah, man, there's just so many songs to get into here. Track one, Hall of Fame. I love the opening vocals. Then right after that, you get these great rapping. But just overall, a lot of vocal variety. The tempo really picks up into the chorus. You get these big maximalist drum hits. I think Hall of Fame sounds great. And then track two, you get the title track with the music video, S-Class. Man, this is a perfect example, a textbook example of what Stray Kids does when they mix up and mash genres on a song. You have, I think, this really amazing pre-chorus vocals from Seungmin and Felix. The luxurious, like I'm an S-Class. Like the vocal line, the vocal performance is so catchy, and then you get into this like super high energy electronic chorus that I actually think is the worst part about the song. It's a little grating to me, but it's like a complete switch up. But then the second verse one was singing, verse two, it's fucking straight rapping. Like I think S-Class is great. And then after that, you get Item, which is a lot of rap. I think what's awesome about Stray Kids too, as rappers in K-pop, is that they like go super hard as rappers. I think they're probably the most capable group out there right now when it comes to rapping in K-pop. I think the K-pop industry as a whole has come a long way in terms of not being like super cringy and corny with the hip hop, but you still hear that often. But Stray Kids, like I think they're super compelling as rappers, and I think Item is just a hard ass song from that. But also like on the production side, there's like this video game like chime sound at one point. The bass drums sound amazing. Once again, a pre-chorus that's incredibly catchy. IN, the feeling blessed part. Like, again, it's a really sticky vocal line, really sticky vocal performance. I love it. Builds up to this chorus, and the chorus hits hard. And again, it's almost a messy chorus. It's a bit like S-Class, where I think like the chorus, the hook is probably my least favorite part. But then the way the chorus goes out, there's a huge like breakdown on the beat. Like, there's just so many flourishes and touches with this music. I'm so into it. Super Bowl, I think starts off really hard, and then it's kind of like a cheesy hook here. The line is like kind of ridiculous. The finger looking, yeah, we cooking up a Super Bowl in the kitchen, Michelin, irresistible. Like it's like fun harmony because it's like all of them singing at once and like catchy, but also like corny. I think in a good way. Like I don't mind it. Um, Going on, top line, you have this really ominous like horns on the beat, and then a bunch of hard rapping, and then a feature from Tiger JK, who's a Korean rap OG who fits in swimmingly, with the other guys rapping. I think that one sounds awesome. DLC, the piano keys kind of come out of nowhere. This almost like pop production, sounds good. Get Lit. I think the beat to me, especially on the chorus, was like kind of annoying. It's like it's a bit too much. It's like it's a lot of noise. But the second verse, I thought the rapping was pretty good. It's good flow. Collision, love the vocal performance. I love the rapping in verse two again. FNF, I love the bass tempo. I love the singing in verse two. Another weak chorus, though. I think that's kind of my consistent complaint. Is I think some of the choruses or the hooks are a bit underwritten, or that the production kind of drowns out what the chorus is trying to achieve. And like it actually has a really nice like outro song too, with Beautiful, which is this closer with a bunch of guitar, probably the closest they get to a stripped down song on this track list. And then after that, you get the Korean version of The Sound, which is a Japanese track they released earlier this year, and this like old loose single from last year, mixtape Time Out. So 12 songs, 36 minutes, but definitely a full length project. And I think, like I said, there's a lot to like about this. I think the flourishes, the switch ups definitely warrant multiple listens because there's just a lot going on with this music. And when it's going right on songs like S-Class and Hall of Fame and Item and Top Line, it's like really shining. I would say this is definitely my favorite K-pop release of the year as a whole, as a project. And Stray Kids, they're rising to the top quickly, and I think that's really exciting. Obviously, they have a lot of competition in the men's side of things, and there's multiple winners here. Between TXT and 17 and Hyphen. As in upstarts, like the male K-pop will be just fine. And of course, we got uh, mainstays like NCT still churning stuff out, but I think Stray Kids are like the face of male K-pop right now. With this hiatus from BTS. But let me know, how'd you feel about Stray Kids' third album? 5-star? Did you like it as much as I did? What's your favorite song? And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of The Idol, the new drama series on HBO starring Lily-Rose Depp and The Weeknd. The Idol from Sam Levinson, the creator of Euphoria. The Idol has been quite controversial and polarizing ever since, really, I think the production changes came to light. Notably, Amy Simons, the director, had shot around 80% of this series before Sam Levinson ended up coming in and writing and directing everything basically from scratch and reshooting this series. Sam Levinson initially was involved as a producer on this show, wanting to not be super involved because there's a lot going on with Euphoria for him as a producer there. And yet, it seems like The Weeknd, this is his ostensible acting debut, Uncut Gems cameo aside, The Weeknd kind of pushed this creative change, and Levinson was brought in to have more of a hand with the creation of this series. And that was a quite controversial move because reportedly this was to kind of alter the thematic viewpoint of the series, and The Weeknd's critique was that there was too much of a female view with how the Idol is being portrayed. And then, of course, we got this Rolling Stone expose with interviews from people on the crew on the set of this series from a few months ago. This piece came out where the show was described as kind of like a transitioning from a music industry satire under Simons to like a male rape fantasy, and was told as being incredibly exploitative and graphic in its nudity, but also just a kind of overt portrayal of the male gaze and things like that. Of course, this series has since premiered at Cannes very recently. 2 episodes were shown to critics and it got a very negative reception. So there's a lot of controversy and noise around The Idol. But to me, I was certainly invested in the series from the get-go just because I think Sam Levinson, for both good and bad, deserves, I think, a lot of attention because he's a line pusher. He's a willing to take risk, and he's also a very polarizing figure for what he puts into his movies. I totally understand that, and I think the fact that he is the one putting a show like this forward will certainly turn more people off than someone else had made this, which is a totally acceptable viewpoint given Levinson's history to this point with Euphoria and Malcolm and Marie and Assassination Nation. Like, that's the kind of storyteller he is, and I think I still, I think, quite interested in. I think the premiere episode was quite intriguing, and I'm curious to see like what this show ends up being. I think it's being billed as being sold as like this really sleazy and sexy and genre pushing hard R show, and we'll see if it ends up actually being as edgy as it's being propositioned as. Because I think through one episode, it's certainly risque, and there's plenty of nudity already in the first episode. But we'll see if it ends up being as across the line as people are saying it is. I haven't seen that yet. But I think kind of the appeal, of course, which is Lily-Rose Depp's character Jocelyn, this pop star, this very famous artist, this singer. Her, having this career with all this, her team really pushing her career forward as she is kind of getting over a troubling time in her life with the passing of her mother, while everyone else, these not really hangers on, but all the people invested in her success really want to push Jocelyn's career forward. Having that like music industry piece is quite compelling to me, and it seems like the show isn't necessarily going to go down that path because it's more interested in Jocelyn meeting this Svengali mysterious figure, Tembros, played by The Weeknd, who seem to have a mutual attraction to each other, and they're gonna increasingly get into the orbit of one another. And I think we're gonna actually be seeing her team playing off that more so than like the classic like industry uh push forward. So I think I'm curious like what like the music satire, like what to what level that still ends up being in the show versus how much of that was like killed on the cutting room floor when the show was reshot. We don't really know. But and I think like right off the bat it starts off an awesome way. You have Jocelyn on this photo shoot, and her team is like quickly established, and I think that the cast is just so awesome, right? You have Jane Addams as this music label executive, killing it. Hank Azaria as this like manager fixer type. Troye Sivan as Jocelyn's creative director. Rachel Sennett as Jocelyn's friend and sister. Divine Joy Randolph as another person on the team. Eli Roth as I think it was a Ticketmaster or Live Nation exec. Dan Levy as like PR or something. Like, love all that. Like all those pieces. Love all the conversations they're having in and around Jocelyn. I think very quickly you get something that's gonna get attention, gonna get think pieces. Definitely probably turns off plenty of people, which is this uh, scene put up where like the intimacy coordinator on set has issues with how the photo shoot's going, and Jocelyn isn't really feeling how he's going, and her team basically locks this guy in the bathroom so they can proceed with doing these nude shoots. And I think it presents the question of like female body autonomy versus the incredible importance that intimacy coordinators provide in modern sets, and how much safer they make shoots today than in the times before they existed. Seeing like an obvious like lambasting of an intimacy coordinator, that is an edgy like line pushing thing, and that'll certainly turn some people off. So like I think that's like a incredibly obvious one. From there, I think seeing my girl Jenny Kim from Blackpink and her acting debut as being one of the dancers, and like that whole dancing scene again, it's like super provocative, super showing of skin, but like that was kind of cool. Watching them go to the club though, after a night out, after this photo shoot day, that's where we meet The Weeknd. And on top of that, like there's a whole nother thing, right? You have this nude leak of Jocelyn, like a very sexually explicit nude of her face with a bodily fluid involved, and like watching her team kind of juggle that and like how they're gonna message before they even tell Jocelyn what's happening. Again, like I really like all that stuff with the team. I want to see more of those characters and that whole operation interacting, and I think Lily-Rose Depp, who, she's been in a bunch of stuff at this point, but never in like really like starring roles. This is like her first big role. I think she's doing a pretty good job kind of conveying this, I don't want to say troubled artist, but like an artist who has like a lot to manage, and like whether it's her fame and her mental state and just a lot of pressure and stuff. I think she's doing a pretty good job through one episode. I'm really curious to see how this performance progresses. Um, And then so they go to the club, and that's where, of course, we encounter The Weeknd's character, and the like attraction that Jocelyn and Tenbros have. It's like pretty quick. It's like pretty abrupt. You kind of just have to go with it. But like before we know it, they're just kind of feeling it, and they're making out, and then they're going to the staircase to try and have sex, which doesn't end up happening. But like you kind of have to just, I think, go with that. But I think it's the club like looks really cool. It's like this like like small club, and like I love the music choice. The first music cue you hear, which is Madonna's "Like a Prayer," just because like I think there's a really obvious like through line between like what that song represented in Madonna's career, coming out at the end of the 80s and being this like big like creative step forward for Madonna in the eyes of critics, and you juxtapose that with what we see later with Jocelyn and The Weeknd's character, where they're talking about her song, and Jocelyn's like openly admitting that she thinks her pop song that her team wants her to put out, she thinks it's a bit too superficial from a lyrical perspective. And The Weeknd has some ideas about how to punch up her performance, let's say. And I don't know, it's just kind of a fun through line to have like a really like artistic song like Madonna's "Like Your Prayer" and juxtapose that with someone like Jocelyn, who could be seen in a certain sense as a young Madonna when Madonna was like a pop star first. Interesting idea. Um, yeah, and then towards the end, we see I think some of the headline grabbing stuff. Right, you have a shot, I think a pretty extended sequence of Jocelyn choking herself while fingering herself. Like it's a pretty like long, like gratuitous shot, and like that's just like it just feels like a Sam Levinson thing to like linger on something like that. That's just what he does, you know. I love the Vanity Fair brief moments earlier in the episode. I thought the interview, I thought that one pretty cool. Like the Weeknd coming over though, and he's like so creepy looking with his like black cape steeped in darkness, so mysterious, and the things they do at the very end were like the Weeknd basically covers Jocelyn's face in a robe, and like she starts to like have trouble breathing, and then he cuts a mouth hole with his knife. Like it's like hard to watch some of it. Like I don't know how sexy I necessarily think it feels, and we'll see because like I know there's like a lot of like graphic sex stuff to come, and I guess we'll just see like does it go down the path some people say? Is it gonna be like torture porny? Is it gonna be a rape fantasy? I don't want to see that necessarily, but if it's like really like sexy stuff, I mean I'm sure that'll be cool. But I think a lot of that stuff is really wait and see for me. And like I said in the beginning, I'm just curious to see like what level of edge this show actually is putting forward. Because I think in some of the negative reviews, it's not so much that like it's the graphic nature or the thematic point of view that's turning people off, but some people think it's just actually a bit flat and it's like over promise under deliver type thing. So I'm intrigued, but I definitely want to see more to really understand what this show is actually interested in, because it's clear that there's a few different lanes you can go down with this show, and we think we know which lane it will end up going down, but I think we have to see that still. So we'll see. I think at the very least, it's something that people will be talking about. It did nearly 1 million viewers just on Sunday night, so that's a great sign that it'll be successful, probably averaging several million each week as it improves. So another solid hit for HBO, it sounds like, and we know this will have attention. Shout out to Rat Tail, The Weeknd sporting in this, looking wild. Yeah, the Idol. I think from a meta standpoint, I'm incredibly intrigued by the Weeknd's desire to make something like this, just because as the Weeknd has for years now, as people know, become the biggest pop star, in the world, give or take Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny. Like he is at the very top, the number one artist on Spotify, basically indefinitely at this point, over 100 million monthly listeners. The Weeknd is full blown pop, and yet the thematic intentions, the character he's playing on The Idol, reminds me so much of the old Weeknd. House of Balloons Weeknd, back when the Weeknd was incredibly explicit and hedonistic and dark. Before he was as famous as he is now. So that's also an interesting like juxtaposition of like the Weeknd, almost going back to his like real roots. Who, I'm not saying like who he really is, but like what he used to be really interested in making art about. So we'll see. I mean, I think Lily-Rose Depp, and she certainly compels, and Sam Levinson, I think, kind of demands attention for good and bad. And the Weeknd as an actor, we'll see. I think he's okay to start, but I obviously we need to see more. Like if he just kind of gives a dud of performance, I think it would really detract from this show and just point out that he's not really an actor. We'll see. I'm not sure. But let me know, how'd you feel about The Idol through one episode? Are you intrigued to continue like me? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yes, Spider-Man is back once again. I believe this is the 10th film starring Spider-Man since Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi got it started way back when they did. And now we're back in the animated world with Spider-Verse, the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, which was I think a huge surprise hit, both from a critical and commercial standpoint, and really, I think, opened the door for the future of a few different things, both animated storytelling as well as the concept of the multiverse and mainstream storytelling. I think that's pretty clear. And I'll get into all this. Overall, I loved Across the Spider-Verse. It's getting rapturous reviews. It's getting a big box office. All that is super deserved. This is a step forward for the medium, for superhero storytelling, for Spider-Man. This deserves the hype. This is excellent. This is arguably the best Spider-Man movie. It's really amazing. And there's so much to appreciate about it. I just think I'm going to get into all that. I'm going to spoil it, of course, but love the movie. Let me know what you thought about it, and come back if you don't want to hear spoilers, but make sure you come back. All right, so Across the Spider-Verse is a step forward from animation. I think that's really the most important thing about this movie is like this shows you what happens when you approach animated storytelling and IP storytelling. You approach things with a clear creative vision and like real like intent. I think the breadth and volume of animation styles, different animation styles in the same frame of across the movie, like the breadth of all that is eye-opening. It's magnificent, and it's just so beautiful, and it just goes to show you how shitty a lot of other IP storytelling with lots of CG often looks. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. We know how overworked the CG houses have been the last few years, both in terms of coming under pressure from studios like Disney in terms of getting paid, contracted timelines, ballooning work volumes as more and more people are asking for CG work, the burnout across the industry. We know it's tough. And despite all that, and I lay the blame into studios' feet, not the talented animators. Despite all that, often stuff gets turned out and doesn't look great, But part of that is also the conception of it. With these Spider-Verse movies, which we know, of course, Lord and Miller are involved from a production standpoint, but these Spider-Verse movies have so much clear intention with how they're trying to communicate narrative with their animation. And it's just something that's, I think, really unparalleled. Like, you don't get this anywhere else. And again, it shows you, like, this is actually, like, the height of this art form, the height of IP storytelling and genre storytelling and superhero storytelling, certainly. This should be raising the bar for others. You see what this type of movie accomplishes and communicates. We should be stepping our game up from a storytelling standpoint. Obviously, animation goes a long way in letting you do things that you can't really achieve in live action. That being said, though, like, again, the vision is evident. I think just starting right off, like, we get a lot of Gwen Stacy in this movie. Haley Steinfeld does the voice. Gwen's Earth, like her world, the animation style is beautiful. The color palette is awesome, but it's it's like watercolors. It's like brush strokes. That is like the style you get in that world, and those brush strokes like change when emotion is conveyed across the characters, whether it's from Gwen or her dad, the conversations they have. It's beautiful stuff. When we see Miles, in his Earth, in his New York City, that color palette is much more neon. Like the fact that you have like different, like the worlds feel so lived in with those styles. It's awesome. When we get further down the line in the movie, when we meet all the Spider-Men and women, Spider people, in this Spider Task Force from under Spider-Man, Oscar Isaac's Spider-Man, who is, what is his name? Gosh, I forget. There's so many Spider-Men. I'm forgetting all the names. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. Sorry. When we meet all the Spider-Men, it's like even more mind-blowing because you're seeing like a Spider-Man from like a 90s comic, and it's that animated style and vocal performance on top of that, and you're seeing that in the same frame as like a pulled out of a cartoon that we might recognize from like the 70s or 80s Spider-Man next to Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy, and like the breadth of style and how like you're communicating all this stuff at the same time, I think it's just a new height. It's a new ceiling for like what you're trying to do here. And what, ever since the first movie, I think what these movies are communicating thematically in terms of the Miles Morales character, and also a lot with the Gwen Stacy character in this movie too. In terms of not having to be like all the other Spider-Men. Like the first one goes out of its way to tell you that Miles Morales is not Peter Parker. He's not the same guy. And then this movie takes that idea further with how Miles rebels against all the other Spider-Men, in Act 2 and 3. But along the way, Across the Spider-Verse is really playing with like meta convention of like our understanding, our conception of the Spider-Man character, the Spider-Man tropes as a form of storytelling. Uncle Ben having to die and things of that nature, and having that actually be like these canon canon points, canon events, the fabric of the multiversal timeline, and how you break that, having like the core tenets of Spider-Man be what drives your multiversal storytelling, I thought was like really brilliant, honestly, and I think really ties you into like the stakes of this world, and just like one last thing on the visual is like you think of from let's just like backing it up. So with multiversal storytelling in the mainstream sense, right? Into the Spider-Verse really pioneered this, and you would assume gave Sony the green light to go ahead with No Way Home. Bringing in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield alongside Tom Holland and doing a great nostalgia play, but also like really mainstreaming something like that. And of course, that movie is the second highest grossing MCU movie of all time, a massive success, or third highest grossing after the last two Avengers. And since then, Marvel's like, well, we can do that again. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness jumps worlds, jumps Earths frequently. And except for a few brief moments when they're like a bunch of globs of paint for a second, it's not visually distinct the way something like this is so clearly like different all the time. Obviously, animation can do more, but there's a lot of CG in Doctor Strange. In fact, there's a hilarious offhand joke at Doctor Strange's expense in Across the Spider-Verse. But you would have thought a movie like Doctor Strange 2, where multiverse is literally in the title, you would have thought that movie had a more, I don't know, sophisticated, interesting take on multiversal storytelling. It really didn't. I still liked the movie. I thought it was pretty solid. Sam Raimi, when he got to do some weird stuff, had a lot of fun with it. But there was higher goals to achieve that movie didn't go after. And of course, since then, the literal Best Picture winner at the Oscars this year, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Amazing depiction of the multiverse. The best depiction of it, of course. Now we're back, and Across the Spider-Verse is like taking it to the next level, and I think it's just like an amazing union of like the core Spider-Man themes, especially the core Miles Morales themes of identity, and figuring out where you fit into that structure, taking that with a now completely mainstreamed multiversal storytelling and doing an excellent version of that, because you're playing on the very convention of Spider-Man tropes as a storytelling device with, again, amazing animation that's varied and unique and engaging. It's just the complete package. It's incredibly compelling. I think the action always looks awesome because the animation is always so vibrant and fun. This movie notably ends on a straight up cliffhanger, just like Fast X did a few weeks back. And we know that Beyond the Spider-Verse will be coming out next year. These movies were originally a part 1 and 2, basically still are, and they were split into 2 movies. So it's a clear, clean break, cliffhanger break. And I'll be curious if it's actually still a 1-year wait, or they want to give it extra time for the box office, because this movie really blew expectations away, blew the past movie's performance away. 120 million domestic and 208 million worldwide. Great start. Hats off to Sony and everyone for this. But I think like the ending, hard cliffhanger, I think it really kind of grabs you at the very end, where spoilers, like when you realize that like Miles went back, but he went back to the wrong universe. He went back to the universe where the spider that bit him is from. So he actually went back to the universe that doesn't have a Spider-Man. So then when he goes and he meets his parents, his mom specifically, she doesn't know who Spider-Man is when he brings it up and tells her the thing. Like, that's a huge moment that like really hits. And they double do that with a twist where it turns out Uncle Aaron, Prowler, is not in fact dead, of course, in this universe, and instead this universe's Miles is actually the Prowler and is bad. It's like, that's an amazing like way to like, I think, like drop the bomb on you and then end the movie with a cliffhanger. Obviously they have to land it with the next movie. I have a lot of faith that they will land it just because these movies have such a clear vision and I think creative intent behind them that I'm sure they'll nail it. But like, that's a big moment to end on, you know. But really, I think just like the OD of it all throughout, it's just such a good time, you know. Like, I loved Karen Sony. He's voiced Pavatir, the Indian Spider-Man. He was great. Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. I think I loved him. I loved how that character slowly became the antagonist towards Miles. I really liked how that went. Issa Rae as Jessica Drew as one of the Spider Women. Good. I think we're gonna get more Jessica Drew in the third movie. That seems pretty clear. Of course, Jake Johnson back as Peter B. Parker. I really like that performance still from the first movie. Also, the villain. Really the villain towards the beginning, but like the villain that's kind of serving as a plot device to drive this movie forward, which would be the Spot, voiced by Jason Schwartzman. Really awesome villain to have in animation in terms of how he makes these portals and like the fights go with Miles and Gwen and stuff like that. Really like that, but like I think this movie does a really good job of building up stakes and getting you invested in all kinds of stuff. Daniel Kaluuya is really awesome as Spider-Punk, who's this British, Spider-Man, rock-star, anti-establishment Spider-Man. But like, again, the animation style that you have of Spider-Punk, and you put Spider-Punk next to Miles, and you put Spider-Punk next to Miguel, like, it's just so cool, the different things that they communicate here. Of course, they do another Spider-Man pointing meme. You'd love it. You see archival footage of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and you see the cashier woman from the Venom movies. Like, Sony brought in all other stuff like that too. There's references to the Insomniac PlayStation Spider-Man version of Spider-Man. There's all the cartoons. Like, if you're a Spider-Man like head, and I'm not, but like, if you are Spider-Man head, there are so many references and Easter eggs to point out. But it's also genuine because that's what these movies are all about. Is like this multiversal Spider-Verse, if you will. So I think it's a really awesome franchise that's really been established here. We know they're making a developing spin-off around Gwen and perhaps Jessica Drew as well. Clearly, there's a lot of meat left on the bone with the animated Spider-Man world, so we know it will not end with Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. That's pretty clear. One also note that I think is kind of eye-opening about this movie is it only grossed $35 million in China. Sorry, it only grossed $17 million in China, projected to finish in China around $35 million, and that is down from Into the Spider-Verse's total China number of $62 million. And that's despite the fact this movie's been well reviewed in China, both by critics and on fan sites like Douban. Like, just another example of, even when the movies are really good and well liked, there's just less interest in Hollywood films in China than there once was. That is just, I think, incredibly obvious, and clearly stuff like Avatar: The Way of Water are outliers to this. The China box office is not what it once was, but thankfully, Spider-Verse 2 is doing really well everywhere else and will certainly still be a big hit. Really happy that it's as great as it is. It really deserves all the hype, and it's awesome the box office is exceeding expectations as a result. So let me know, how did you feel about Beyond the Spider-Verse? Did you like it as much? Sorry, not Beyond, Across the Spider-Verse. Let me know how you like Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. How did you like Spider-Verse 2? Let me know how you felt. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do it for the pod this week. Next week, a bunch of good stuff to get to. Once again, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. This new indie film, Past Lives, which is being widely talked about. It's probably the best film of the year thus far. Can't wait to see it. Premiered back at Sundance. New music from Janelle Monáe, Christine the Queens, British rock band Squid. There's a new Tom Holland show, The Crowded Room. Not sure how good that'll be, but I'm going to take a look. But yeah, let me know. How'd you feel about this episode? Hit me up on Twitter, follow the pod at NostalgiaPod, youtube.com/NostalgiaPod, linktree.com/NostalgiaPod, and I'll see you next week.